Okay, I want to talk today about finishing your comics project. Starting a comic is the easy part. It's exciting. You are excited about the possibilities of what this comic could be. You're just full of inspiration, and it's just easy to get down every day and like start working on your comics project. Finishing it, that's a completely different animal, because the fuel that's getting you to work on your comic at the beginning is not the same kind of fuel that's going to see you cross the finish line. Today in this video, I'm going to talk about what are the tactics, what are the mindsets, what are the skills and habits that you need to cross that finish line, to finish that comic project that you keep fizzling out on. I've got 3 questions that people have been asking me about what's stopping them from finishing their comics. I'm addressing each one of those individually. I'm explaining my year-long absence from YouTube. It's been over a year since I made a video. I'm going to explain where I've been and what I've been working on and how that relates to the topic at hand today. So this is a jam-packed episode. Get out your notebooks, get out your pens or a pencil. You're going to want to take a lot of notes because we got a ton of actionable advice for you today. So let's get right into it. This stack of pages right here, this is my most recent comic project. I didn't finish it because I was just being fueled by this constant burst of inspiration. I finished it because of consistency and a few specific habits that, when repeated over and over, helped me through even when I didn't feel like working on it. Now, some of you might notice that I had a year-long gap between this video and my last video, and here's why. In that time, I drew 252 pages of comics for Scholastic. This is a graphic novel that's going to be published later in the year. I also published the robots book. I finished designing and drawing out and building that book, and then shipped it to over 1,000 Kickstarter backers. I also helped relaunch svslearn.com, and with our new community and uploading all our classes and everything there and getting that thing up and running, and taught 2 weekend comics workshops through SVS Learn. So this was my busiest year yet. And yes, I had to make sacrifices. I worked weekends, I skipped vacations, but I felt like when the opportunity shows up, you eat while the dinner's hot, okay? So I delivered the last batch of the 252 pages in January for this, and then I took a nap. I've been kind of taking it easy since then, recalibrating, figuring out what the next steps are. And I wanted to get back to making comics videos, because when I look at the YouTube videos that I make, these videos are the ones that seem to get rewatched and really help people more and more. So I asked the community, what is it that you're struggling with? What keeps you from making your comics? What's stopping you? And I got a ton of responses, and this video is in reaction to one of those consistent responses that I've seen. I show these comic pages as an example, okay, of what you can do when you have proper motivation, and how much you can actually finish when you stick to this certain line of thinking that I'm going to talk about in this video, okay? Up until this point, I had the most comic pages I've ever done for a comic was like 170 pages. So this was 70 more pages than that. And the most comics I'd done in my whole career were about 800 pages of comics. This comic was a full quarter of all the pages I've ever drawn in 1 year. And I learned a lot from this, and I had a lot to think about while doing this. And I want to share that with you. Now, this video is about staying motivated, right? And I want to address the elephant in the room, okay? This particular comics project is something where I had a paycheck, I had a publisher I was accountable to, and serious consequences if I failed, okay? If you work for a big publisher like Scholastic on a very big property like Wings of Fire, and you don't deliver it on time, you probably aren't going to work with them again. A lot is riding on this particular project or any one of their projects. So yeah, those are huge, massive motivators that would keep anyone moving. But those are all external motivators. And for most of my comics work, I've had to rely on self-induced motivators, which actually came in handy on this project as well. when I'm in the depths of the project and I felt like there was no end in sight. You have to dig deep. Regardless of the external stuff, you have to dig deep on some internal stuff to finish it and to like feel good about the work that you're doing. So the big question is how do you stay motivated when you aren't getting a paycheck, when you aren't accountable to anyone, and when there's no consequences if you fail? Okay, so for the rest of this video, I'd like to address the three of the biggest things that keep artists from finishing their comics. First one is, how do I stay motivated when I stop believing in my idea? Okay, when you lose faith in your idea, it's often not about the idea itself. It's about your shift in your internal narrative. Okay, that inner critic gets louder as you go deeper into the work. And your standards rise. You start thinking, you start looking at like the early pages and seeing how much you've improved and thinking, well, now I got to go back and finish those. And this is too much work. And your imagined outcomes become harder and harder to reach because you're like striving for, some sort of imagined perfection. That's all natural. That's human nature. What helps is separating your feelings from facts. Okay. You could feel doubt and still act. Just because the voice says this isn't good doesn't make it true or useful. And there's a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called catch it, challenge it, and change it. And I find that super helpful. When you start to doubt yourself and you start thinking, oh, this isn't good enough, you catch that thought and you recognize it. Okay? You say, oh, I've just recognized doubt. And then you challenge it with questions like these. Okay? Is that fact or is that a feeling, right? Was I excited about this idea at the beginning? And if so, why? And if I just finish a rough version of this and decide later, will I feel different? Okay. Then your response to those questions is changing that thought, because you get back to work and you keep going on it. Important thing to remember here is motivation is rarely the starting point. It's the byproduct of momentum, and you just want to keep that momentum going. Okay, so here's a couple other questions I want you to ask yourself, and these help reconnect you with your values of why you started. Number one, why did this matter to me in the first place? Why did I want to do this project in the first place? And what does finishing this say about who I want to become? That's your motivation, not excitement, but alignment with your values as a creator. Question two is, how do I follow through when I keep procrastinating? Procrastination is almost always an emotional regulation problem, not a time management problem. Okay, you're not avoiding the task itself, you're avoiding how the task makes you feel, right? And that might be overwhelm or uncertainty or boredom, because it's just a ton of work and a lot of like tedious stuff. Or you could just be anxious about the project itself and some of the things we've already talked about. So the solution isn't to just get motivated, it's to remove friction from the project itself. Okay, so here's three things you can do to remove the friction. Number one, make tasks stupidly small. Okay, so instead of work on my comic, on your to-do list, try open the file if you're working digitally, or get out the piece of paper and just draw one panel. Just draw one panel. Tell yourself that. And then you think, well, yeah, I can draw one panel. It'll take me 10, 15 minutes, whatever, or a half hour. I don't know how fast at drawing you are. But what this does is it leverages what behavioral scientists call success spirals. And it gives you small wins that give your brain dopamine, and it helps you to build momentum. So instead of rewarding yourself for finishing, an entire page start to finish, you get to reward yourself for finishing one part of a page. Once you start, you're more likely to keep going. Once you finish that thing and you complete that one small part of it, man, a lot of times you've got that momentum going, and you can keep drawing the page. Okay, so that's number one, stupidly small tasks. Number two, Keep going with mini rewards, all right? Set up your production with a series of these mini rewards. And what I like to do is make myself a progress sheet and fill it with tiny squares every time that I finish a task. And I break down the pages into writing the page, laying out the page, penciling the page, adding word bubbles to the page, inking the page. Those are like all the little things I do for that. And this progress sheet that I made for this Darkstalker book that I worked on was indispensable to helping my like image-based brain understand how much I've completed and what was still to be done. I can kind of understand what 25% means, but when I see a row of 10 columns with 2.5 of them like colored in, I immediately get it. Oh, that's 25%. Also, part of that, I would have like a daily or weekly to-do list of things you want to accomplish on the comic. And every time you finish a page, you check it off the list. So you're multiple checking off things, and there's satisfaction there. A little mini rewards to like filling in a square, checking a box. And number 3 is to celebrate each page you've finished, not just by checking it off on a list, but what I like to do is print out each page when I finish it. So this comic was all done digitally, but every time I finished a page, I'd click print on the printer, I'd hear it pop out, and I'd put it on the stack, and I could see that stack grow up. Also, I could look at the page at print size and notice, all the little details and just make sure I'm like doing a good job on it. Third question, how do I build discipline when there's no external deadline pushing me forward? Discipline isn't about grinding through misery. It's about building structure around your goals. And here's how you do it, okay? We know that people are more likely to stick to something when it satisfies 3 core needs. There's autonomy, which meaning you choose to do it. There's competence, which means you're capable of doing it. And there's relatedness, which means you feel connected to others in the process. So if you have those 3 things built into the project that you're doing, you start to build discipline through that structure. Okay, so how does that work for a comic? Well, number 1, set deadlines that matter to you. And one way to do this is by connecting it with a date tied to an event. Like, say you want to have your comic finished and printed for a Comic-Con happening in your city, or you want to have it finished by Christmas because you want to sell it on your shop, or you want to give it away to friends. Or maybe it's your birthday. You've always wanted to finish this comic by a certain age. Okay, so give yourself these little deadlines, and by keeping that date in mind, it's going to require you to be disciplined and focused to finish it. Okay, second, track your effort, not just your output. And that's really important. That's like a game changer for me. We already talked about this briefly with keeping a progress sheet, but I would also include keeping track of time spent on each page. Okay, progress sheet keeps track of your output, but keeping a timesheet keeps track of like effort and how much time you put into it. So every time you sit down to work on the comic, write down when you start it and when you finish it. And as you progress towards the deadline, you're going to have a better understanding of how much time it takes to finish a page, and you can plan accordingly for future pages. Plus, it shows how your competence is a growing skill. Like you used to take you 16 hours to finish a page, and now you cut that in half by the end. You're doing them in 8 hours. And then lastly on this, involve other people, because isolation can kill momentum. Okay, this one is huge. Surround yourself with a tight group of people interested in your comic progress. It might be a crit group. It might be like an online community, like what we have on SVS Learn. We have a bunch of artists there all like working together on various projects and giving feedback to each other. It might just be friends and family that you've surrounded yourself with. The point is that when you know someone is expecting the work that you're doing, it helps you to get down to work and avoid stalling, because they're expecting to see the next page next week, right? So you want to deliver that. You want to show them what you're doing. Now, people think comics are made with inspiration and talent, but really they're made with routine, with grit, and tiny wins stacked on top of each other. And the truth is, I would have never been offered this job to do this graphic novel here if I hadn't already proved that I could stay motivated, that I could avoid procrastination, and that I could meet a deadline. All right, it's those skills that I had already learned that got me to this 252 page milestone. So you don't need a publisher breathing down your neck. What you need is a system that works for you. And that's what's going to get you to the finish line. Now, I put together a free 6-part video series designed to get you up and running on your next comic project. It's based on the workshops that I've been teaching recently, and it also leads directly into the new Graphic Novel Pro course that I'm developing, which is launching soon. Where this video helps you to get like out of your head, that video series helps you get work on the page, which is just as important. And if anything I've said here resonated with you, you're going to want to check that out, because in this series, I'm going to show you the actual like tactical steps to get you to start on your comic and finish it strong. So the link for that is below. It's totally free. I hope to see you there, and check out this next video. It's all about how to write comics.